What's up, guys? So we're gonna do Masters Pickems for the playoffs. Obviously, it's been a hectic Swiss stage, and there's a lot of unexpected things that happen. If we look at the bracket, lo and behold, we have Gili making it into playoffs. Obviously, they're one of the underdogs that had probably the lowest possibility to be able to make it, especially with the field, like full sense GE, but they made it out. And from here on out, we have some good matchups. We have some really good matchups to look forward to. And if I'm being honest, I'm pretty sure 99% of people can pick G2 just based off of their experience. They're obviously their first pick, and I don't think it's a scenario where, you end up picking somebody and they just end up surprising you. I feel like Gli has had some streaky games or like some streaky maps where they look good, but overall they definitely don't look like one of the top teams at Masters London. So obviously G2 being big brother, they're gonna little bro Gli. And honestly, it's probably one of the best steps for XLG, being able to have more experience in the playoffs, so that next time around, maybe even champs, where they can start to perform and start to break through their ceiling. Obviously, that they've had at internationals where they've been underperforming compared to China. And for the next series, EDG Foot. Honestly, based on how Foot looked against a decent NRG. NRG definitely is not in world champ form, and by no means I feel like it was like a superior, like a huge upset that Foot won. If you give, like, if I were to give odds of that game, it was probably a coin flip where maybe one side goes 55-45 on whatever side you pick. Honestly, I had the 55 as energy just based off of the experience, and they're really close to be able to coming back, but I feel like just some overall game plan mistakes led them to deficit that they could not overcome. And with EDG's prep, everybody talks about prep time. Everybody talks about how they ended China like a huge gap in between, obviously between when China ended and then also going through Swiss stage. They've had over several weeks to prep. And so while I would pick Foot to upset, I think EDG, with the rest and the prep that they have, they do give Foot a run for the money. I do think it will definitely go to 3 maps. And if it's a 2-0 either way, it'll be a surprise. And an op v op battle with Sop and Kong Kong is just going to be absolute cinema. And Paper X Lev, I think I love Paper X in this matchup. I feel like they've been in really good form, especially coming out of Vietnam. They've been looking like one of the top teams at throughout the whole world. They definitely have been on top of the rankings, at least for most people, as a S tier compared to like really good teams like G2, a Heretics, even a Lev, and at one point Energy. But as of now, Pepper X are definitely one of the teams that are competing with G2 narrative wise as one of the favorites to be able to compete and make it all the way to grand finals. And while my brain says Paper X, I think I'll have to go with Lev. I feel like Paper X is the smart decision. They pick Lev, they know what to expect. But I feel like with Lev's momentum and their firepower and their ability, like honestly, like I've looked at some of the games during Swiss stage, and there are certain points where you look at somebody in a clutch, and like some of these teams, you'll look at like one or two players. If they're in a clutch in a 1v2, most likely you feel like they're not favored, they're not gonna win. And with Lev and Paper X, that isn't the case. But I think with Lev, their youthfulness and their mentality and their resilience is able to adapt to a Paper X. They have an idea what to expect. They may be able to be surprised, maybe first map. But I feel like again with the GE thing where they kind of look flat in the first map and then they were able to surge back in the third map, I feel like that may be the case with Lev. I think 9 times out of 10 times I would pick Paper X, but I think this is the one time where I pick Lev. Heretics Vitality, another regional matchup. The theme of Masters London, and obviously we have two EMEA teams in an EMEA region. And for Team Heretics Vitality, I think Heretics has shown great form, but obviously there's a lot of doubts with them not having the busted neon. Or there are some teams that do play the neon like GE, and I assume some of these, like, it won't be the last time we see neon in this Masters tournament. I do think they stick with it just because it isn't necessarily a detriment or how they generally play, but I think at a point where you're going into playing games, I feel like teams want to have the best overall advantage, so they often pick the broken agents. And in the case where neon isn't as great, when it was maybe a 9 out of 10 to it being like a 6 out of 10, I think that definitely deters the game plan and the overall head to head. And with Vitality, they've had good momentum. They have had strong showings. Boston, they do have some cracks. I feel like Team Heretics is the team to pick out the cracks of a team, but I feel like at the same time, the overall quality of their gameplay has cracks in itself as well. And so I think this head to head, obviously they've had experience before, and so I think I'm gonna have to go with Vitality. Enough of the chit chat. Let's just go with Vitality. And in lower bracket, we'll just go. Yeah, we'll go round by round. So I have to go with Foot. Foot has been looking explosive. I don't think G-Light can handle Foot. We'll not get too deep into that. And this series probably can be potential to a lower bracket. Lower bracket final, or lower bracket run. Sorry. And so I think in the way Paper X play, I think they just outlast Heretics. It does go to the 3 maps, but Paper X clutch and have good trades. And all right, we'll go back to the upper semis. G2 EDG. I think G2 in this position is heavily favored, depending on what EDG show. Because I feel like if EDG show a form that's like maybe like a 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, then that is very possible for an upset, depending on map pool, obviously, because I haven't really watched a bunch of China, and so I don't really know EDG's map pool and what they do plan to play, because obviously Ascent was added really late on into playoffs, and so I think I'm gonna have to go with G2 just based off. I feel like if it isn't this run where they have the best suited odds, especially since they're not in a quadrant of death, I feel like they outlast EDG and make it to a top 3 position. And guess what? If Paper X don't beat Lev, then I don't think anybody else, maybe besides G2, beat Lev. Because in a scenario where Lev show a dominant form, or even like a considerable like good form against Paper X and outlast them, I think that Vitality is just another team in the way. And I think it really takes a lot of patience when it comes to playing Lev and Paper X, because there's often times where rounds can flip, where you often feel like you're going back and forth, where you're winning a round, you're losing a round. And I feel like Lev thrive in that, whereas a lot of the EMEA teams, maybe besides Foot, I feel like Foot thrives in those back and forth where they can get a thrifty eco round. But compared to like the standard teams like a Team Heretics or Vitality, that again, Lev is just another team in the way. And so we'll go to lowers and Vitality Foot. I think Foot, it's just destined. It's just destined. Unfortunately for EDG and Paper X, I think Paper X and Foot meet in the lower. I think that it is very possible that Vitality beat Foot in this scenario, but I think obviously one of the fan favorite matchups that people wanted to see. and where we will most likely see, because I can't really think of any other matchup where it's like highly favored. Like mostly these high octane teams like Lev, Paper X, but people want to see them because it's just going to be like really action based back and forth games. And so in this scenario, the fans get what they want. Lower round, and we'll start with the top. And is it a repeat of VCT America Stage 1 where Lev win in a BO3 and G2 go? Oh my god. I think it's two scenarios because I don't think Paper X beat, or I don't think Foot beat Paper X. And I think I'll just start with the lowers and go with Paper X. In a best of three, yeah, I think Paper X beat Foot. And in this scenario where I think the the spearheads or the spearhead of the team is Sop and Zeus, I think when you have a team like Paper X where all five of them can be the spearhead at one point, then it's just an uneven matchup. There's too many weaknesses in Foot. I think, or at least one of their weaknesses is like their initiator player. You know, you know his name. And in that head-to-head matchup, he does not stand a chance in that uh regard. And I think it's crazy if you look at Foot's path. They could potentially flip this around where they eventually do meet Paper X, but in the lower round two. And so that would be crazy. That would be crazy. The EDG. Damn, that is crazy. If EDG Paper X lower round three. Hmm. Yeah. We'll just stick with what I got. And go with Foot, Paper X. Damn, cinema. Cinema, cinema, cinema. Cinema, cinema. Jesus. I think in this scenario, I think G2 would be favored. Again, they played a BO5 against Lev and they did win. I think though in a different situation, I think it's actually a repeat of VCT stage 1 and we're going to go with Lev just because Lev have already played Paper X, and so G2 have to go through Paper X in order to go and beat and go to grand finals and finally win it all. I think if we're looking at it from a viewer perspective of like, I don't think in this scenario there isn't a game where it's not worth watching. Maybe besides this game. This game very potential, or it's likely. It's I think it's another. It can be another GE situation where a team expects to win, but if they aren't shooting on a day, then it is possible. But it's of like 99%, a 1% chance. Whereas GE, it's like it was like a 5 to 10% chance where it could happen, and today was at 10%. And I think narrative wise, this is probably the best story because there's no T1 for G2, there's no uh Nongshim for G2, there's no energy for G2, there isn't any like historical based teams, or there's no Fnatic for G2. And so it's like the perfect scenario for them to finally win an international trophy and be able to go through some really good matchups, go through EDG, go through Lev, play Paper X, and make it to the grand final in an NA grand final. And hey, I might be biased, but honestly, I think this might lead to the one of the best games in an international stage. So yeah, that was my pickems. I think I can't wait till this finally happens. I've been waiting for the first seeds to finally play. We get to see some really good like top form Valorant. We've been seeing some scrappy Valorant from the 2 and 3 seeds in the Swiss stage, but finally we'd be able to see like some really good set design. Like you see the intention within the game plan and then be able to execute it like a G2, Paper X, Heretics and Vitality. And so I think even EDG, if EDG go to their transform, you'll see some really good Valorant. And I can't wait.